how can you give someone the thing that they want with the least amount of risk or downside possible? Do you want to build your audience? Do you want to potentially leverage someone else's? Or the third one, which I think is a little bit interesting, is
former director of marketing for Alex Hormozi at acquisition.com, Tobias Allen.
You can get eyeballs ridiculously easily and at prices that would probably blow your mind. But it doesn't matter much if it doesn't close into sales, because you're basically just wasting money.
You don't necessarily need to be doing content for vanity metrics. If you have the right systems in place, a podcast with 200 views might be a major success.
People have a tendency to stop doing the activities that got them to the peak of the mountain and then start to fall back. But you get to the peak and you keep doing the activities that got you there to get you to a new peak.
Someone like a content creator who has got the audience, but they don't know how to monetize. What would be some ways in which they can maybe go by to create that offer?
Yeah, good question. So an approach I would go for is...
Tobias, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I mean, so many questions. We've just been for breakfast/lunch.
Yep.
And we've probably done half the podcast already, but now we're going to need to recite all of it over again.
Let's see if we can pull it off.
But direct response marketing then, from 16?
Yep.
It's a long time, given that you're now 28?
Yeah, 28 as of April.
Oh, well, 1st of April as well.
Yeah. It's a good month to be born.
I agree, the weather turns nice. Although I'm always taking the mick out of, seeing as I was born like 10 minutes before 12.
Okay.
So April Fools.
Interesting.
Doesn't work too well in my favour. But yeah, briefly discussed beforehand. We've got an hour, so there's so much to cover, and I wish I'd booked 3. But I want to go from this start to finish process, especially for the listeners on this show who are very much content creators, maybe solo founders who are starting to dip their toes into the waters of online business. And I want to go from that start to finish process of trying how to craft an offer, validate it, then work out a winning marketing plan to get eyeballs at scale, and how to convert those. And obviously, being the former director of acquisition, you probably have a playbook for all of those steps. So
I have a few ideas.
Well, I mean, before we do, what are the Hormozis like? I mean, I've been watching them for a long time. I'd love to meet Alex one day. What's it been like?
Yeah, honestly, it's just an incredible experience. So, like, I've met a lot of founders, and without a doubt, they are some of the best founders that I've personally had like the privilege to kind of work alongside and work with. In terms of what you see, it's what you get. So I think something that surprises people is what you see in the content is who they are in real life. And they make an incredible unit. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of them.
Seems like Leila is the executioner and Alex is very much the idea guy. Seems like there's good synergy between the two.
There's incredible synergy. So my understanding is they do take mentorship. And so they've also had incredible mentors. And early on, my understanding is a mentor suggested that like Alex should step into the marketing kind of function and then Leila operations. And they each get good at those respective areas. So there is a lot of synergy, and I think it's like you can clearly tell. Like one, they don't work without each other, I would say. But it's like when I say synergy, it's like 1 + 1 = 11. You get more.
Before we get into, I guess, the start to finish approach, I want to get a better idea of what your time looked like at acquisition. So I know you've been involved in like the affiliate programs, obviously, but the mastermind, or at least part of the process behind the book launches. Yeah. I want to get a sense of how that was and what you might have learned from that.
Yeah. Like where do I begin? So I was there just over 2 years, and for the first period of time, I came in as an SME, so subject matter expert in marketing. My primary role was to help scale the portfolio. That was my kind of primary function up until the first book launch. So that was when we launched 100 million leads. Like credit to Alex is he trusts his team. And so I was given quite a lot of responsibility on this project that he'd spent years creating, and helping put it into the marketplace. And so like each book is a meta concept. The first one, offer, how to make an offer so good people feel stupid saying no, launched on Amazon for 99 cents. 100 million leads. It was like the meta concept was using all of the concepts in the book to essentially promote it. Now, I'd had experience with the vast majority of them, cold outbound, content, paid ads, things of that nature. And we were using all of those to advertise the project. Something that I hadn't really had experience with, transparently, was affiliates. And so I had to give myself a crash course on how to do affiliate marketing in a very short period of time. And like, essentially, I found all the top people in the world to do it. I watched kind of all of their podcasts like this, made notes, got kind of like the key levers, I guess. And then it was off to the races. And in terms of like a breakdown of where the leads came from, like I would say a third was content, a third was paid ads, and then a third was affiliates. And in that 6-week period, I helped scale the affiliate program to about 29,000 people. And yeah, it was just an incredible experience.
I think just before we continue on, I want to get a better idea of what affiliate marketing really is. I mean, I feel like it's quite a good buzz term at the moment, but it's certainly a powerful scheme to play with.
Yeah, I'd actually say it's if you can unlock it for a business, it's probably one of the ones with the largest upside, because it can compound. So word of mouth is a form of marketing that can compound for a lot of businesses. A great example is Alex's first book. Like, the word of mouth for that book is astonishingly good. And like each month sells more copies than the last. In terms of affiliates, when you get an army of people promoting your business, it has an element of like compounding to it. And so like 2 of the largest businesses I've personally seen have been built off the back of affiliates. Now, in terms of like definition of affiliates, it comes in different forms. Broadly speaking, it's other people promoting your business for you. And then you can then train them to promote your business in a variety of ways. So like 3 methods, just as an example, is like a freemium model. So what that is let's say it's software. You see this with Go High Level. What you'll do is, what some affiliates will do is they'll create an online course. And in order for people to get access to the course, they have to sign up to Go High Level. So that's like an example of a freemium. Another example is content creation. So sticking with the Go High Level example, people will create content, like let's say a YouTube video on how to set up a Go High Level account. And then below the video is like a free trial link to Go High Level. So there's like 2 methods that an affiliate might use to promote the product or service. And then a final one, which I think is actually the most interesting, is kind of an embedded affiliate or an embedded partnership. And so using the content example, it's, let's say someone has a coaching business or a business, it's putting yourself in that person's business so that customers that come in then proceed to either ascend or be cross-sold into your product or service. They all work. And the reason I like the third one quite a lot is because it's invisible. And so an issue in some really competitive markets is everyone's trying to copy you. And so if you make your funnel quote unquote invisible because you've hidden it in other people's businesses, it can represent quite an interesting competitive advantage.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think out of the 3, I suppose they each have their own core utility depending on what the business might be, depending on the vertical and the type of business, perhaps.
Yeah, you have to work out essentially a strategy that works for the product. So like, for an example, with going back to the Go High Level, typically a way to sell a subscription item. So Go High Level is a software with, let's say it's $97 a month. Typically a good way to sell a subscription is you use a bonus or an incentive that's more compelling than the subscription price. So it gets people over that inertia. And so the top affiliate for Go High Level right now is using the freemium model, which is he gives away his course for free, provided people subscribe to that link.
I mean, that's definitely something we've got noted down when discussing, I guess, the amplification of the offer and what the business might be. And yeah, I mean, we see a lot of it. It's something that I'm yet to dabble in, so it's got a few questions on that. But I want to touch upon this idea of creating an offer. I think we had the conversation beforehand, but what I'm doing, I have an idea that I want to maybe test and put out into the market, but I don't know if it is, I guess, an irresistible offer. And I don't know the ways in which I could maybe validate that or find market fit without putting too much money into it. So
Yeah.
I guess, first of all, I'd like to know what makes an irresistible offer. I appreciate there's a lot of nuance to that depending on the business and what they're trying to achieve, but is there some sort of blanket definition you could give me?
Yeah, good question. A blanket definition. How can you give someone the thing that they want with the least amount of risk or downside possible? So biggest upside, smallest downside. And then playing with the psychological levers in order to make that more compelling would be how I would kind of approach that.
How would it be for maybe, again, the personas we discussed before, someone like maybe a content creator who has got the audience, but they don't know how to monetize?
Mm-hmm.
What would be some ways in which they can maybe go by to create that offer? Are there steps that they should take that are low risk, especially if they are starting out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So an approach I would go for is essentially looking for a proof of concept. So proof of concept is, did you get the person the thing that they wanted? So it's quite a simple like sales framework of like A to B. So a person is at A and they want to get to B. What is that defined outcome that you can offer? And you essentially take that to the marketplace as like a proof of concept. So let's say podcasting as an example. I'll help you get a podcast to 100,000 subscribers. In terms of getting a proof of concept, go out into the marketplace and see if there is a need for it or a desire, i.e. people are saying yes to it. Go and get the case studies, like show that you can do the thing that you're doing, and then essentially use those case studies to start to market.
I have two things that I'm curious to pick your brains on with the idea of an offer. I'm seeing more and more of a push to create an audience on something that you want to potentially monetize later and then figure out the offer. So almost start sharing insights and knowledge and, unlock pain points on a specific sort of thing that you might want to create an offer on. So you have an audience that are pre-qualified that when you do have the offer, you could sell it to them. I've seen that quite often. That becoming like a core talking point in the online business world.
Yeah.
And also this idea of maybe, in terms of validating an idea, I think one thing you said to me beforehand was, if it's like a low ticket product, maybe I can go in and test some paid budget, or maybe if I have an audience already, start rolling out a waiting list. I mean, what are some ways in which you might suggest validating an offer? As I do have quite a few friends and know people in this space who've got a fantastic audience, but we don't know how to sell to them. Obviously that blocks the ability to do that thing full time.
Yeah, good question. So at least the way I've done it successfully in the past is going out into the market that you're trying to sell to and making an initial offer and seeing what the kind of outcome is. So I'll give you like two examples. One, prior to my experience at acquisition, I was in the agency environment, and I tested a bunch of different offers. One of them was a cold outbound system. And the way I validated it is I went to where the market hung out. So I wanted to serve agencies, and I knew cold outbound or getting customers was a pain point. So I've spoken about like that, my MAN formula: money, authority, and need. And so if you look at an agency avatar, like I knew agencies typically like they had high cash flow or like high margins, which meant that they had cash to invest. Authority, I knew it was quite easy to get a hold of the decision maker. And then need, they need customers. So like I knew there was a loose market there. I went to a Facebook group where there were a bunch of agency owners hanging out, talking about how to get clients. And then what I did is I took screenshots in the group of like what they'd said, and then I DM'd them. And it was like, are you still looking to solve this? Was kind of the intro.
Smart.
Yeah. And then after, obviously, very often was the case that like they still were looking. And so from there, I was like, well, I basically made a proposition, which was like, well, if I could help sort your cold outbound for you at a price that was reasonable, would you be interested in that? I was like, yeah, I got positive replies. Like, yeah, actually, that would be something I'd be very interested in. So I was like, okay, great, let's hop on a call and then discuss what that would kind of look like. So I used that to set calls. And then at that point, in terms of like validating an offer for me, I truly believe you should take payment, i.e. like money on the line. And so I saw the first couple of clients doing that. And then it was like off to the races on like delivering the service. And then technically at that point, you're in business. And so like it's basically following those steps of, let's say you're an influencer and you've got a large audience, make a small offer to them based on like, I see that my audience has this pain point. If I could help solve that at a pain that like at a price that was interesting, would you be interested in that? And like, depending on what price point you're looking at putting into the marketplace, if it's low ticket, i.e. below like, let's say $97, sell it with a landing page. If it's a higher ticket item, similar to what I did, set calls. Just stack up your calendar, take calls, see what pricing people are prepared to kind of accept, and then take payment. And you'll be off to the races, and then see about delivering the service, see what the feedback is like. And at that point, it's just a constant, you might have to iterate a few times until you kind of get something that like the market is happy with and like that you're happy with.
God, the sauce.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like essentially have an offer that is useful almost and solves a legitimate pain point for a specific avatar.
Yeah, that's an approach I personally like. Some of the more successful businesses I've seen is either a founder that is trying to solve a pain point that they'd previously experienced. So like I worked a lot in D2C, so direct to consumer brands. And some of the best brands I personally liked working with was a lady who developed a shampoo to solve kind of like a hair problem she was suffering with. Or there was a blue collar business, and as a blue collar worker, he wanted to set up a business for himself. So he created a D2C brand that was a sweepstake company that, and the giveaways was basically like pre-made businesses that they could give away. And that was an interesting way that he'd kind of like sold the desire that he previously had. And so I've seen many successful businesses. It was just like sell to a previous version of you. Equally, I've seen that as a successful approach to software. I've seen people who have a like methodology that they previously developed, maybe as a service or something that a workflow that they've used in an existing business. And then they've decided to just put that in a software to serve that avatar. And so like I'm talking to an AI agent company at the moment. They're called Marbleism. And what they do is like the founder had previously exited a business and he had a couple of key employees within the business that really helped. An executive assistant, a content guy, and then the third one was an SEO writer. And so the first three AI agents he's put in the software solved those three problems. And he's just taken the existing workflows that was in the previous business and productized it. And yeah, there's an example with that business. I'd say School, which is the platform. Like I have kind of a paradigm that what Sam Ovens has done is he took his previous coaching business and just built a platform around it. Like, yeah. So one of his programs helped coaches kind of get to 100,000 a month. And he taught it via productizing a service, which was like community, courses, and then like Q&A calls. If you look at like the School platform in terms of functionality, you've got courses, you have a calendar to do the live calls, and then you have community. And so he took what was successful as like a model that he tested across tens of thousands of students and built $1 billion software around it.
Just on that, slightly going off on a tangent, but you see Iman Gadzi purchased consulting.com.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Reasoning, why do you think?
I couldn't comment on the reasoning, to be quite honest.
I was trying to connect the dots and I didn't really understand why.
I feel like there was an element of ego at play. I do know Iman went through Sam's stuff. Quite a lot of the top guys, at least in the info space, have some form of genesis in Sam Ovens' courses, in my completely biased view. So, and I know Iman was in some of those courses because there are some old recordings online and he's in the back of the room and you can see him. So, yeah.
No, just that reminded me. But yeah, I watch a lot of Charlie Morgan. I think he preaches him left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I know we've got tight for time, but I guess I'm going to get onto this idea now that we have a very good offer and we've got ways in which we can test it and also put it out into the ether. I'd like to know how we can go by amplifying the offer. And I appreciate that's a $1 million question, isn't it? Like, how do you get people to buy the offer? And that's where you come into play, like your expertise.
Yeah. So in terms of making an offer more compelling, broadly speaking, you're looking at like the psychological levers to make it more compelling. And so I quite like a bridge framework where imagine you've got someone on one side of the bridge and you want to take them to the other side of the bridge. Like imagine like a creative exercise. What are the methods that you might choose to do that? The guy could walk across. He could take a cycle. You could give him a Rolls Royce to drive. Things like that. And so that's an example of how do you get there like faster. Let's say the bridge has like lots of crap on it and like it's a bit of an obstacle course and like someone's put mines. Now you've got an element of risk. How can you make the journey across potentially safer? So instead of a car, maybe you like give them a helicopter to go from one side to the other. So you're looking at like speed, risk, like bonuses. What's on the other side of the bridge? Maybe on the other side of the bridge is like a bar, and so you can go get and drink. Rory Sutherland, who's a chairman of Ogilvy, he's got an incredible story about the Eurostar. They spent billions of dollars, and this was engineers thinking of like the Eurostar, for context, is the train that goes from the UK to Europe or to France. A bunch of engineers decided that they wanted to make it faster, and so they spent billions of dollars essentially shaving, let's say, like 10 minutes off the journey. Rory Sutherland, as an advertising man, was like, in terms of the cost that was spent on that, what if instead of trying to make it shorter, you reallocate the budget and just hire a bunch of supermodels and serve like fancy champagne, or I think he said it was Petrus. In that instance, you probably get people wanting the journey to be longer. So you're changing the perception of what that journey means. And so when it comes to an offer, like you've got time, how fast can you get someone the result? You've got risk reduction, so like guarantees or reviews, like showing reviews of people using it. Pricing is a big lever, and the pricing terms, so like how expensive is it, or the perception of price. A common sales tactic is to like break down a price into smaller increments. So let's say for $9 a month, it's $9 a month. You might break that down to like it's 33p a day or 3p a day, or whatever the math works out as. And so like you can play around with the perception. And then you've got urgency, you've got scarcity. So De Beers with diamonds, they successfully pulled off the belief that diamonds were scarce. And so in terms of like supply and demand, where something is in short supply, typically you can sell that at a higher price. And so you can play with these elements: urgency, scarcity, the size of the promise, risk with guarantees, or like pricing, to all make an offer more compelling.
I want to talk about brand building and also the synergistic nature and the time and the place for brand building, and also like direct response marketing. I think if we were to go off, because we were having a fantastic conversation before about media as a moat, and obviously brand building and how it's a very good strategic long-term play. And I think it's a conversation I had with someone fairly recently. We were talking about how I really do think it's the biggest moat now for a business. Like they brought up YC, and they said, like YC is a media company that sells VC.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great way to reframe it. It's like Red Bull. I don't even associate it with the drink anymore. It's like this media company now to me. So I feel like let's take someone that, as with the show, we're either targeting maybe the content creator or like a solopreneur who's just getting started, maybe doesn't have an audience, and maybe acknowledges that media is a great play. What are some low-hanging fruit decisions that he could make in terms of content? Should he be starting something like YouTube, short form? And how would he go by that?
Yeah,
how would they go by that, rather?
Yeah, great question. So first, I would chunk that up before making a decision on the platform. And when I say chunk up, is Do you want to build your audience? Do you want to potentially leverage someone else's? Or the third one, which I think is a little bit interesting, is do you want to sell customers? And so I, very biasedly, I have the belief that the biggest brands in the world have the most customers. Like if you look at Nike or Nike, Apple, Dell, like the big brands, what do they all have in common? They have the most customers. And so broadly speaking, I've seen a way to build a brand is to just simply sell more customers and engineer advertising campaigns like whole cloth to just go and get customers ahead of brand building. So that's like something I would just mention. In terms of like building a presence online, I think one of the lowest hanging fruits that you can do is just go and leverage other people's audiences. Someone who's spent several years building an audience or a tribe, how can you get in front of them? An example would be a podcast like we're doing right now. How can you get invited onto other people's podcasts? Like, I'll give you an example. I did one earlier this year, very deliberately. It was maybe like 4 hours of my time to go up into London and do the podcast. The podcast did fairly well, and I had 300 people reach out over LinkedIn. And in terms of like, they were already like pre-qualified leads, and I had everything from business owners offering me equity to like wanting to hop on a call and a whole range in between. And that podcast was published several months ago, and I still get inbound from it today. So there's an example of leveraging other people's audiences. Another thing I do is I actually go and give trainings in other people's communities. I do that more from a recruiting standpoint. So I have a pretty in-depth network of businesses, and I'll give you an example. There's a coaching business that trains copywriters. So I've actually gone ahead and done trainings for the copywriters a couple of times. Many of the people within that community know me, and they've reached out over LinkedIn, and I then provided some insight on like how to land a whale client, for instance. But when it comes to recruiting, like I have a lot of companies that reach out. They say they need a copywriter. I have an active pool of 2,000 people that I haven't necessarily had to build that I can essentially source copywriters from. And I've done that across copywriters, media buyers, funnel builders, content people. It's one of the ways I provide value to a business. And then the first thing of like the long approach of like building your own audience, a way I would approach that is, firstly, I would try and get customers in so you've got money, because survival is everything. Provided you've got money coming in or you've got a war chest, a way that I would do it is be prepared to play the long game and essentially set up a routine where you can post content consistently. Ideally, one of the first hires would be someone like a creative director to help you and buy back some of your time, like with the editing, script writing, things like that. And then all you need to do is go on camera and read or like work through the pre-prepared materials and create a pillar piece of content. So I would actually start with YouTube right now, or something like a podcast, longer form pieces that have the ability to build trust and connection. In an AI world, that's going to become increasingly important. And then from those long-term pillar pieces of content, which is what you guys do, you cut that up into shorts and you distribute it across various platforms. Now, a question you had earlier is like, okay, let's say you've chosen YouTube. Quite often it's the case that YouTube takes a while to grow. So how can you like, quote unquote, growth hack a YouTube channel? Well, what I mentioned earlier is there's some key metrics on YouTube that like help a video perform better. One is the CTR on the thumbnail. So that's like the sexy headline thumbnail. The other thing is retention. How many people like watch the video and like continue through it? Engineer a video to like have maximum CTR and retention. Provided you've got those videos that are like good and are capable of doing that, YouTube doesn't like you paying for an audience. So trying to like put money behind a video to like get it to scale is not always an effective strategy. If anything, it can nerf your channel. Just to get kind of dark, there are people out there who take down YouTube channels by buying a metric ton of fake bots on a specific video. And so the videos after that start to like perform worse.
Is that the case with YouTube's own, like, Google Ads, with the campaign being to boost viewership on YouTube? Is that still the case with theirs?
I haven't seen it work from my experience.
Okay. So you're talking about third parties specifically?
Yeah, third parties specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of like, let's say you want to like give your channel a boost because it potentially might take time to get the compounding nature in play. What I would look to do is get the traffic from elsewhere. So I would still actually try and get other people's audiences. So let's say you're posting YouTube. I would promote those YouTube videos to other people's communities or audiences if I could. And you start cross-pollinating someone else's audience onto your own. And that can help potentially act as a Kickstarter for your channel. You spoke about Iman. A way that he scaled his YouTube channel back in the day was a sub-account strategy on TikTok. Sub-account being create a dozen or so accounts on TikTok and create a lot of like shorts that get a lot of views.
It's tape model, right?
Yeah, basically. And so like the sub-accounts might be like best of Iman clips, day in the life of Iman. Like imagine like 50 of those. And then in each of those accounts, as soon as they pass 1,000 followers, you stick a link to YouTube in it. And so all of that traffic is then going to ideally your best performing YouTube channel. And then that's a way for you to like essentially like growth hack a YouTube channel if you were looking to do that. And potentially you could do that with meta ads, provided you had some form of filter so that you knew that the quality of the audience you were sending across was helping to like engineer good click-through rate on the video and then retention. Like if people know, like, and trust you, when they click on your YouTube videos, they're more likely to go ahead and watch it. And those are the signals that YouTube starts to be like, okay, this creator's popping off for some reason. They start showing his or her video to other people.
That segues quite nicely to what I wanted to touch upon now with content strategy. So I like this idea of there being top of funnel, mid of funnel, and bottom of funnel content. And I think, as you know, I have a few conversations with founders within, like, let's say the buy investment vertical, and they're asking, I want to start YouTube, but I don't know what I should be making content on, don't know who I'm speaking to. You know, they've got the market understanding and leadership to share, but I guess they don't know how to tailor a content strategy that they can stick to that also works for the algorithm. What would you advise for maybe someone who is, who's got their business, or, the content creator who's trying to build a bit of a brand? How should they go by devising a strategy that is evergreen, that also does speak to, a higher ceiling audience to bring in some eyeballs, but they also have the content that nurtures and perhaps converts?
Yeah. Great question. So again, I believe a business should make money. And so the first thing is, can you create a piece of, let's say, conversion content that helps bring some sales in? I think content can be a long game. And so if you get some early wins on the sales front, that's often like directionally an indication that like this is working, and like this should be where we put some resources. So an example of a conversion piece of content might be a case study that you post on YouTube, and it's a central piece of your content that you start to want to direct people through because you know it converts. And a case study could also be like a video sales letter or a sales message. Real quick, in terms of a structure for sales message would be like, there's 3 sales: the sale on your opportunity. So like, what is the opportunity at hand? The sale for yourself. So like, why should someone want to do business with you or your company? We've been in business for 15 years. We have 5,000 customers, blah, blah, blah. And then the third sell is maybe a sell on themselves. What are the objections or the self-doubt or the things that might stop them going forward? If you can kind of tick off each of those boxes in a piece of content, the odds are it will do better at selling you and your company and getting inquiries and things of that nature. So I would try and get a sales piece of content out, because then that when you start doing other pieces of traffic, you have an asset in the portfolio that is capable of bringing in revenue. In terms of the other pieces of content that you make, you mentioned funnel, of like top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Top of funnel, let's say you do shorts and some like longer, maybe lifestyle pieces that get more views. That's for awareness. Middle of funnel, let's say you use podcasts, and again, longer pieces of content. And I personally think long content has more of an opportunity to essentially resonate with someone and build more of a connection. Like if I were to ask you a question right now, what were the last 5 shorts that you've seen? You probably wouldn't be able to list a single one of them. But maybe if I asked you what was the last video you watched, you'd probably be able to say that. So that would be that one. And then like bottom of funnel, that's maybe like the assets on your website that you're trying to get people, you're directing people to, or even your sales funnel, or like a low end offer to get people in the door.
How do you leverage the content? I think we discussed it briefly about things like maybe mini chat or whatever. Let's say you are starting the content, you're putting out some shorts, putting them out on YouTube or whatever. Maybe you've got starting a newsletter perhaps, and that's something you discussed before and that you're quite bullish on. How do you, so I've just started putting out content. The YouTube channel is growing slowly. What are some ways in which I can, I guess, as you said, put content out elsewhere and utilize other channels to try and maybe cross-pollinate audiences and capitalize on, let's say, I don't know, the virality-esque nature of TikTok, and maybe try get some eyeballs from that platform onto YouTube?
Yeah, so something you can do in terms of, there's this idea in NLP, which stands for neuro-linguistic programming, which is essentially like it's treating the brain as if it's a supercomputer, and there's an idea that you can program your brain to get a superior outcome. A reason I mentioned that in this context is if you think about marketing as like programming someone's brain, how are the methods to communicate to someone? So you've got like hearing, you've got speech, you've got sight, you've got touch. So in terms of like getting your content out into other places, something that I would potentially think about is how can you take that YouTube channel or that YouTube video you've just created and you put work into and get it to tick off the other modalities. So a YouTube video, turn it into a podcast that you put on like Spotify, and then you have another distribution on Spotify that's tackling like audio. In terms of touch, maybe you decide to like get the YouTube video transcribed and put into a newsletter and you send out to some prospects. So you've got like the physical touch element. And then sight, let's say you like, you take out the hook and you stick it on a graphic and you post that as like a carousel on Instagram, or you take that longer piece of content on YouTube and again, just like churn and burn on TikTok and see what potentially pops off. And then with distribution, there's so many different ways now of quote unquote hacking distribution at scale, depending on your budget. Like there's content farms overseas, there's AI, there's reaction videos, you have TikTok affiliates. So you're seeing this in D2C right now, where you've got brands building armies of TikTok creators creating UGC for them. And then they're throwing that into their meta campaigns.
I want to touch upon podcasting specifically. It's obviously something that I'm very bullish on. But I know there's a bit of an ongoing debate of whether it's as beneficial as it once was. I don't quite understand that argument, but I am hearing it more frequently.
Yeah.
Is there ever a case where, let's say, maybe a founder who is starting a SaaS perhaps, is there ever a case where podcasting might not be a good decision? And if so, why?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's always a case for an argument against content. It does take time.
You'd say so?
Yeah, I would say so. Like for a busy founder, maybe they don't want to get in front of the camera. Maybe that is actually a decision that they personally don't want to make. That's absolutely fine. There are plenty of businesses that scale without this kind of like personal brand or this content game. Like there's plenty of companies that scale through cold outbound or through events or a plethora of ways. So like content is not the only thing. But if you are doing the content game, I think a necessity is having long form in there. And I personally love podcasts. A reason for that is it's essentially like a new version of radio advertising. And if you understand radio advertising, you potentially understand that it's one of the most powerful forms of advertising, like mediums, that is very misunderstood. Like, again, going back to the psychology, there's a quote from the Bible, which is, before there was sight, there was sound. And podcasts represent sound, and it's stored in a different part of the brain with like a deeper resonance. Like, I'm sure like, there are songs that you listen to and it will take you back to a memory, or like you're able to remember the lyrics. Imagine if you've got that for your company. And like the game with podcasting is saying the same message again and again and like repeating it. And so like, this is maybe the third or fourth podcast I've personally been on. I'm saying similar things, albeit in different ways. And for people who are following me and going from each one, like, they're going to start essentially associating me with some of those things. So like the man formula, I must have mentioned that like half a dozen times in various clips and like things of that nature. But like, if you view podcasts as radio, and then you understand how important radio is, it punches a lot higher, like it's a lot heavily weighted for conversions than a lot of people appreciate.
Yeah, that very much so. And also I think there's many reasons I advocate, and I'm sure you would share a similar perspective to what I'm about to say. But as let's say a founder or content creator, it's a very quick and easy way to cross-pollinate eyeballs at volume, depending on the people you're inviting on the show. It also gives you an opportunity to sit in front of a camera and talk for half an hour. So you have this cake of content you can cut from, as we discussed with the repurposing. And it's also a great networking thing, right? Like, I know for a lot of people, I'm sure, as you said there, the person that you came, that you went on the podcast with, where you saw those leads come in, you had those 300 inbounds or whatever. But yeah. I'm sure if, I don't know, a potential client for you that came past the host's, door, he would probably, push him onto you if he felt it was right. So it's also great for, it's great relative to the amount of time that's required. I think if you're just the one sat in front of a camera talking, you're not having to worry about like scripting shorts and having to do dedicated filming sessions. It's very much a case of you can sit down, have a conversation with someone about something you know about, and then look forward to weeks of material being pushed out. I think that's why I'm very bullish, especially with maybe founders that are looking to start content and build out their moat. I think it's a lot easier than trying to do maybe these really highly edited long form videos where it is about, as we talked about, the CTR and the retention rates at the beginning. So having the hook perfectly sort of engineered. Whereas with this, it's a conversation. So people who are watching it have higher purchase intent, I think, naturally. They're more pre-qualified, because if you're going to tune into a 45-minute podcast on, I don't know, why cold outbound works, you probably care about cold outbound. So I guess just a ramble of me saying I think it's a good idea to start.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's like potentially the last frontier of good information. Like, that's interesting, yeah. If you think about like the true experts who don't have personal brands, or like the experts in the trenches that are doing things and they're too busy to be like filming content every day of the week, but potentially they can come and do a podcast for 2 hours and give like a complete download on what they're doing. Like, that's pretty like high signal information. The other thing, and there's just two things on that. One is like, if you actually go in an Uber and go through London and then just watch how many people have earbuds in or headphones in. Like everyone is constantly like feeding their mind with something. And in terms of like going to the gym or even just walking down the street at this point, you typically see headphones in people's ears, or a lot of people's ears, and they're not all listening to music. So what are they listening to? Podcasts. And so there's an example of like, it's reaching market in real time and you can see it with your eyes. Like, regardless of what anyone says of like podcasts are dead or they don't work, just go and take an Uber through your city and see how many people are like, have got earbuds in or at the gym. Like, the gym's a great one. Like there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs that work out and they're not always putting music on. They're listening to a podcast as they work out. Amazing. And then the other thing worth mentioning is like, it's a great sales tool. Like you can invite your prospective customers or leads onto a podcast as a sales mechanism in order to potentially close deals for your company, and or your association as a company with someone else in your space is potentially a sales asset for someone else who sees that, and there's a degree of trust there. So like, it doesn't necessarily matter how many views it gets. Like, you might do a podcast and it gets 200 people and you're like, oh, this is an abject failure. Imagine if that was 200 billionaires. Like, again, my gripe with social media is a lot of people are chasing views, and it can be a vanity metric depending on the business. What is the quality of those views? Like, a podcast where I went on and like 30,000 views, let's say, that's small in the grand scheme of things. Like where a Mr. Beast video does 50 million. But like in terms of the level of businesses that reached out as a response of that, like we're talking businesses valued at over 100 million. Like saying, can I give you 5% of my company so you come in and like grow the marketing team? Like, not bad for 4 hours work, you know?
I mean, that speaks perfectly to this idea of, well, first of all, yeah, the idea that you don't necessarily need to be doing content for vanity metrics. And if you have the right systems in place, aka the right funnels or the capture mechanisms, a podcast with 200 views might be a major success. And you've set me up really nicely there, I guess, first of all, to illustrate how that could be so, like you just have done with your own case of I mean, that's quite a number. Yeah, I'm sure you had some really good deals come in from that.
I said no to them.
You said no to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just a separate thing. But like,
any particular reason why? Or?
Candidly, I'm working out what my next steps are. And at that point, I just felt it was more valuable for the business owner to like give them some advice or a couple of pointers on like how to hire a marketing person or something like that. And then just leave a trail of goodwill or a trail of trust.
Okay. Well, interesting.
Yeah,
as I'm sure there was loads of really exciting offers coming your way. But I guess talking about, so now we've got the offer, we've got a good media platform, or at least soon to be. It's working. It's bringing in some initial eyeballs and followers to the brand.
Yeah,
I would like to explore the idea of, I guess, funnel architecture 101, like exploring the different pathways. And I appreciate, again, it very much depends on what the offer might be. But just for the sake of the argument, let's say I'm selling some consultancy services.
Yeah.
I may be a coach in, I don't know, whatever. I'm a coach and I want to sell my service and start building up a small freelance gig off the back of this content. What, for someone like that, who I think that persona does relate to the audience a bit, how do I even begin? First of all, what is a funnel? What am I doing? How am I leveraging that to bring customers in through the door?
Yeah, great question. So first thing is looking at the price point of things. So typically you use different funnels to sell different price points and different offers. I alluded to that earlier when I was saying like a low ticket item of, let's say, sub $97 or let's say sub $200. You'd probably use a landing page for that. It doesn't make sense to like book calls for a sales team because like the commission on that for a sales guy is probably minimal and it's not worth doing. For higher ticket items, let's say like 2,000 plus or 5,000 plus, that's where you'll want a sales team to be able to close those deals, because the likelihood of you doing that on a page at scale it's just less efficient than using a sales team in my view. So in terms of like what a funnel is, ultimately I view it as a sales process. And so you're like building a sales process for a business of like what is going to convert the leads. Like a funnel, quote unquote, could simply as be like a setter and a closer, closing leads that raise their hand as a result of watching content. And so quite often when I'm looking at sales funnel, I'm actually starting at like sales team level of like what sales process or sales structure is in place to be able to close the deals in the first place? And is that successful or is that optimized?
Okay.
After the sales piece is kind of like looked at, and like if there are ascensions or things of that nature, only then am I really looking at like the marketing and how can you amplify the marketing in order to fuel the sales team or to fuel that thing that you've already built. Because it's quite easy to generate traffic. Like in this discussion, we've talked about like you do a podcast and it gets 200 views. Like with viral organic TikTok or going on other people's audiences or like paying to play, like paying to do a newsletter drop or paying to get on someone's channel, you can get eyeballs very easily, like ridiculously easily, and at prices that would probably blow your mind. But it doesn't matter much if it doesn't close into sales because you're basically just wasting money. I think there's a statistic like 30% of VC money goes towards advertising. Like how many companies or how many VC companies do they know that like the company just immediately starts wasting money on ads and they're not closing deals or anything? It's because their sales suck. Like, so I've talked about sales quite a lot. Like I view marketing as like a function to sell more, outside of like brand things. And yeah, in terms of like sales funnel, the first thing is like, how are we selling deals or how are we selling this item? Get clear on that first. And then the discussion can move to like, how do you drive traffic? What are the ads, the offers, not offers, but like, what are the ads? What are the angles? What does the creative look like?
If we were to try break it down into like a really simple pathway, I mean, let's say we are talking about someone who has just gotten started. Maybe they have got a bit of initial traction. They've got the first few clients as that coach I was saying, and they maybe do have a way in which they can productize that service a bit like we discussed back in the offer section. They've managed to get it where they can sell it at scale. Is there anything from, the work at acquisition with maybe, the Money Models launch or some of the previous books that you could maybe shed some light on and how that could be applicable to that person in building out a funnel with different pathways or what the entry point might look like?
Yeah. So when you said building out funnel with different pathways, simplicity scales. So when you have like a sales process that works, ultimately a way to scale it is volume. So, and a lot more volume than people like realize. Like, I think people underappreciate or underestimate like how much sometimes it takes in order to win at an item. Like they say they do 20 pitches a day and then they wonder why they're not getting any results. Like some of the sales guys at acquisition were doing like 200 calls a day using an auto dialer, just like a level of volume that gets far more like data of like that you can then improve based off of. And also like show me someone who does that amount of reps over an extended period of time and you will show me a winner eventually. So in answer to your question, like say someone's got something that's working, that's quite often when someone starts getting like shiny object syndrome of like, this thing's working. How about we go ahead and try one of these things? No, like you've just spent getting good at this thing. Do more of it. And then when you get bored of it again, do more of it again. And then potentially keep doing more of that.
I think master like that one path, if you will.
Yeah. Like all of the channels, quote unquote, work. Channel being like cold outbound or content or posting on TikTok even. Like they've all been proven for various businesses to drive like sales or like build businesses. Like what does the upper echelon of that look like? So yeah, I think people don't appreciate how much work can sometimes go into cracking one of those channels. And then when they've cracked it and seen some success, like a lack of discipline or a phrase I like is like, it's like climbing a mountain, and people have a tendency to stop doing the activities that got them to the peak of the mountain and then start to fall back but what does like you get to the peak and you keep doing the activities that got you there? Does it get you to a new peak?
I know we're quite tight for time. I want to talk about, I guess, the involvement of AI and how that's potentially shaping marketing, and especially for, we're seeing lean teams scale faster than ever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a conversation I need to invite you on for
Yeah.
round 2. But I wanted to get upon what's next for you. Like, we had a good conversation before about some exciting projects you're potentially getting involved in. And I guess I want to get, first of all, before we get onto that, I want to round up everything we've just discussed. And I would love for you to give maybe your 1 minute wisdom to maybe someone who is a content creator, who is starting to build an audience, or, a small founder who is trying to now start a business. From this conversation, what is the most important thing that they could take and why?
Yes. My perspective is cut out all of the noise and just focus on doing the thing in front of you and doing it well, and seeing what next opportunity opens up as a result of doing that. It's a very noisy world, and off social media and in kind of like exclusive rooms, or like rooms where, let's say, billionaires hang out, and you ask them how they did it, some of the answers might surprise you, and sometimes quite blunt. Is like, I just figured it out. Like, there are some people who have done very well in business and they haven't read a single business book. Like, they're resourceful and they do the thing that's in front of them, and they solved their own challenges based on what was in front of them on their table, like what was on their plates, what was their resources, what was their connections, and an element of like following their instincts and like trusting, like being resourceful, like in that instance. So it might be a bit of a surprising answer given everything we've discussed, but like, give yourself permission to be resourceful and figure things out on yourself. Would be somewhere where I would potentially lead.
I think another core thing is always the argument of whether it's shiny object syndrome or it's a legitimately good opportunity to maybe pivot to. I think that's something that I've struggled with personally, myself, with business and other things. So it's also maybe knowing how to validate it, or how to iterate enough to the point where maybe it isn't the right channel. Maybe YouTube on this specific type of strategy isn't working, or this channel is proving short relative to this one. So maybe would you say like iterating as well and keeping eyes on the data?
Yeah, for sure, keeping eyes on the data. But like, broadly speaking, if there's someone in your market succeeding at a high level with the thing that you want to do, it's not that the thing doesn't work. It's the thing that there's the argument to be made that there's a skill gap, and there's a skill that you are lacking in order to get to that level. And so that would be how I would approach it. It would be like, what are the skills that I'm missing, or what are the mindset or the beliefs that potentially I'm missing, or maybe even like, what is the mission that I'm missing? I think a good way of growing on social media is backing yourself against a mission, or putting your stake in the ground and claiming something that you believe in, and setting out to make a change in the world, because people can start to rally behind that. And then if enough people rally behind that, they're called followers, and you'll start getting followers. So I think mission is also a very interesting way to build a brand in a community, particularly if it's very congruent to you, and you keep repeating that.
Before we wrap up, so you've just left acquisition. I hope I'm allowed to say that, and that's all official.
Yes.
What is the next step?
Yeah. Broadly speaking, so going on a mission, my personal mission, or the thing that interests me, is scaling good businesses. And so I personally believe that if you help a good business scale, like, you can provide jobs for more people, which I think is beneficial. And then the other thing is, when I say good business, say good product or service. And I think good products and services like change people's lives for the better. Like, we're sitting on a sofa now, like I've got a coconut water there, you've got a water there. Like, a good business provides value to people in their everyday life, or like it solves a problem, as we discussed. Like validating an offer is like, what problem can you solve for people? And then can you do that like productized again and again and again? So like good businesses for me defined as they solve real problems for people, or they provide value to someone in a meaningful way. That's what interests me, and I want to do that on a very large scale. Like launch nationwide brands and scale well-known names.
It's our mission. Well, where can people find you if they want to hear more and maybe have a conversation if they're a fit?
Yeah, just reach out on LinkedIn. Like I'm very easy to find. Like I'm probably one of the first names that comes up when you search Tobias Allen. And yeah, just send me a message. I'm pretty open with my time when it comes to helping people. And yeah, just we'll hop on a call and I'll see if I can provide like one nugget of information or potentially point you in the direction of one of those marketing pools that I make sure to kind of maintain.
Well, it's certainly a testament to your success. It's clear. But
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll have to do part 2 to get onto the whole discussion of AI.
Cool.
Thanks, Tobias.